Alright, so The Boys Season 5 Episode 6 has been released on Prime Video, and this was a brilliant episode. We are here today to do our review, our recap, and our breakdown for Episode 6. So without further ado, guys, strap in because we have a lot to discuss about this episode. So let's go ahead and begin with the title of today's episode, and that would be Though the Heavens Fall. And man, they really went all out with the plot line here, and I absolutely loved it. So let's go ahead and get right into it, starting with MM meeting Chet at the VMC. Of course, I'm sure you guys have heard of the AMC. Well, no, inside of the world of The Boys, we have the VMC, okay, which I thought was hilarious. We even get this whole scene of Firecracker being like the main person promoting the VMC, who of course has now passed away since the last episode. That was a crazy ending to the last episode. So MM meeting Chet was sort of a new character being introduced to us, and the reason that he goes out to meet Chet is because Chet has information on bomb site. At least MM seems to think he does. So meanwhile, while their meeting is taking place, we move over into Homelander and Sister Sage. They're running their own trials for the V1, and they're testing it out on what seems to be other soups or ordinary people. I'm not quite sure, but they're testing it out on a person, okay? And this dude is bleeding out of his bottom half, and that's the most I'll say there. It was a crazy scene, a disgusting way to open up this episode in typical The Boys fashion, which is what we can expect out of this series. And based on those results, it's pretty much conclusive that they aren't able to replicate the V1, but Homelander still believes in Sister Sage. He says keep trying, as him and Soldier Boy go out there to look for the serum. Now MM and the boys end up bringing Chet to their secret hideout to of course acquire information on the location of bomb site, and he happens to tell them that someone by the name of Golden Geisha might have an idea as to where bomb site is, and come to find out this happens to be bomb site's lover. Now on to the next scene. We get a crazy scene between Ashley and Sister Sage, where Sister Sage is saying, listen, you agreed to help me, you said you were going to help me go through with this plan to read Soldier Boy's mind, and the real Ashley is like, I never agreed to any of that. It was pretty much her malignant. Again, if you want to know what a malignant is, just search it up. All right, I talked about it in the last breakdowns. Go back and watch those once you're done watching this one. But what I'm referring to is, of course, that extra person on the back of her skull. And so she pretty much chloroforms Ashley, knocks her out so that she could talk to her other half. And the other half agrees, yes, I am going to help you with Soldier Boy. And that's pretty much where we leave off with those characters. Now, we see Chet and Kamiko make their way off to a retirement home because that is where Golden Geisha happens to reside. You know, she's gained some years now, she's a bit older, but to be honest, the actress playing this character did not look that old. She didn't even look like she belonged in a retirement home. She looked about 30 to 40 years old, maybe closer to 40 years old, but still didn't look retirement age. But regardless, Chet calls her by the nickname Goldie, so that's more than likely what we'll do for the remainder of this review. And while Chet is trying to convince Goldie to help him locate bomb site, she's a bit resistant. Now meanwhile, Black Noir and the Deep, they're still having their beef and their back and forth because of course the Deep betrayed him a couple episodes ago by turning in Stan Edgar without Black Noir, so he's sort of been upset ever since, especially considering after that took place, the Deep killed Black Noir's lead director, which is pretty much the person that was like promoting his acting career, which is what he does on the side outside of the superhero stuff. So because of that, Black Noir of course has to get back at the Deep. Well, how does he do this? It turns out that he goes down to the ocean, he punches a hole in a pipeline, and this ends up leaking, I don't know, a bunch of oil and stuff like that, a bunch of toxic fluids into the ocean, killing up to 1.4 billion aquatic life forms, which of course the Deep holds near and dear to his heart, considering he considers all of these his friends, right? He can talk to them, he can communicate with them. So to him, he just witnessed a fish genocide, and he is having none of this, okay? So they're having their back and forth at their podcast. Now moving over to Annie and Huey, we see them have a sweet scene together. They're sitting on top of the roof of their car, they're star watching, they're having a heart-to-heart about what they can expect to come. Of course, as usual, Starlight is a bit pessimistic as to what the future holds. She sort of has this feeling that they're going to die, while Huey is always more of the optimistic one, and that's what you see take place in this scene. Now we finally see Ashley and Sister Sister Sage's plan take place because she calls Soldier Boy in to talk to her, and as she's discussing with her, Ashley is hiding off to the side, reading his mind, or the other half of Ashley, we can say. So Soldier Boy leaves. They end up getting this information on him that he is still looking for the V1. He's lying to Sister Sage about the location of it, and that's pretty much where we leave off there. Now, because Golden Geisha, or Goldie, denied helping Chet and the boys, they go back to the retirement home to kidnap Goldie themselves so that they can get the information that they require. So they end up putting her to sleep. She's trying to fight back at first, but it doesn't work. She ends up getting knocked out, and afterwards, as they are trying to escape from this retirement home, a bunch of old people seem to come to her defense. Okay, they surround the boys, and we get yet another ridiculous, insane, over-the-top scene where this old man straight up just has this giant nutsack. Okay, there's no easy way to say it when you're talking about this series. It's like 12 feet long. All right, he's swinging it around like it's a fucking nunchuck, and he is just whipping it at the boys. And we have one of the most ridiculous fight scenes in the entire season up to this point. It was extremely entertaining. It was a hilarious scene. Now, moving on, we see Homelander and Soldier Boy make their way to the last reported location of bomb site. Of course, no one happens to be there, but they do find some evidence left behind on a computer. And what is on this computer seems to be some type of explicit video playing with none other than Stormfront. Now, of course, we haven't seen this character since like season 2, maybe season 3, but it turns out she is still alive. And in finding this out, Soldier Boy is not happy at all because Homelander pretty much confirmed that she was dead when she wasn't. Apparently he left her in some facility. She's still alive somewhere in the same horrible condition we last seen her in, and Soldier Boy is irate. He's irritated. All right, he even hits Homelander at one point in time. He stops trusting them. This causes a fight between them, and while this is taking place, Homelander's like, wait a second, why was this planted here for the moment that we got here? It's very clear that Sister Sage planted this and that she had something to do with this. So now Homelander starts beginning to think, okay, she may have betrayed me in some sort of way, and she's trying to clearly divide us. Now that doesn't stop Soldier Boy from still being upset, and he ends up taking off out of there, pretty much telling Homelander that he doesn't want him to end up with the V1. Now, we also kind of find out in this scene that Soldier Boy was apparently with Stormfront for decades, like 6 decades, something like that, he says, which is pretty crazy considering Homelander's past with this same character. But like father, like son now. The boys have this plan for Annie and Huey to go off to the Democratic Church of America and end up planning a device that would pretty much take out everyone there. It's like a gas bomb type of thing. And when they arrive at the church facility, they end up going into a refrigeration room, and inside of that room they find the corpse of Firecracker, and Annie is very sad over this. She's like, listen, she wasn't perfect, but she was still a human. And Huey says, well, that's probably why Homelander killed her, because she was a human in some sort of way. So rest in peace to Firecracker, even though this character was a terrible human being and even like a PDF, which we found out a couple seasons ago. Now, after Goldie's been kidnapped, the boys are talking to her, and she pretty much says she has no idea where Bombsight is gone. All right, Butcher's going through her phone. She has like 16 different numbers for him, and none of those numbers have worked up until this point. Butcher's getting pissed off by now. He's talking about that he's about to just go ahead and torture the information out of Goldie, and while this happens, they walk off into their secret hideout, and none other than Sister Sage is waiting for them in there, and she happens to flip sides inside of this scene, which I found very interesting. Okay, what is this character plotting? What does she have planned up her sleeve? We know she kind of wants to watch the end of the world take place in some sort of capacity, but for one reason or another, she decided, listen, it's time to get off Team Homelander. He's gone a little bit too far up to this point, and she pretty much pleads with the boys that, listen, I'll help you out so that Homelander does not become immortal. They don't really trust her, but they don't really have a choice, so they go along with it, and I'm absolutely loving the character of Sister Sage. I love how complex this character is. I love what they're doing with the writing of this character, and I did see something on Twitter that was a bit funny about this random person's thoughts on the Sister Sage character. They said this is the problem with writing the smartest character in the world type of archetype for a character, is that that character only tends to be as smart as the writers are, which is funny, but it's true. But at the same time, I think the writers of The Boys are damn good, and they're doing a really good job with Sister Sage. Now, we see Ashley doing a White House press conference about this pipeline that was ruptured by Black Noir. And we get this hilarious scene where as all of these fish are dying, the Deep is talking to one in particular that seems to think that he did it, which at first I'm like, okay, did the Deep do it? Why would he? But no, it turns out he didn't do it. We end up finding out, of course, that Black Noir was responsible. Now, moving over into the next scene, we see Kamiko and Golden Geisha, so Goldie, they're having a heart-to-heart. She's telling her, like, listen, even as bad as your show was growing up, I still loved every single episode. She sort of idolized her and worshipped her in her own right, and she's trying to get through to Goldie in this particular scene. Now, after this takes place, Goldie says that she'll just tell Bombsight straight up to give them the V1 because she admits that she doesn't want to live forever. And she ends up saying that to live forever would be torture, and that summer is only beautiful because you know the winter is coming, which I thought was very poetic out of the Goldie character. Now back to Huey and Annie's plan at the Democratic Church of America. They're starting to plant this bomb, and none other than O-Father shows up to confront them. He's like, Starlight, I thought I heard someone in here. And then we get an interesting scene between O-Father and Starlight where we discover that they happen to have some history with each other because she was part of like some church youth group and he was one of the leaders of that group. And we end up finding out that O-Father's real name is Aaron. So that was interesting there. But yeah, O-Father, he ends up admitting in this scene that he is a straight up true believer of Homelander. Not at one point during this scene does he deny Homelander's glory as God, which I thought was unique. Okay, I'm surprised that a character as deep in the faith as O-Father would just completely go over into the Homelander rhetoric, but at the same time he of course wants to get himself out of debt and pay off his $100 million worth of debt for his church. So at the same time he has his own motives and interests. Now he ends up attacking Annie, Starlight, during this scene, which was crazy because we got to finally see his power on display for like combat. We of course seen him in church just projecting his power for preaching and stuff like that, but we finally get to see how effective it is at combat, and he pretty much works like the DC character Siren. So he's yelling, he's screaming, Annie can't even stand it. She can't even use her powers because her eardrums are about to rupture, and that's when Huey comes out from hiding and he ends up confronting O-Father and saying, listen, I have the soup virus right here. Yes, we didn't wait all this time to just waste it on you. It's meant for Homelander, but I will use it on you if I have to, if you don't let Annie go. And so O-Father agrees. He lets Annie go, and they go on with their plan. Now, during this entire scene, there's this giant statue of Homelander looking like Christ with his arms out. I thought that was crazy as hell. But moving on to the next scene, okay? Black Noir and the Deep, we're back with these characters and their whole beef that's going on, and we end up finding out that apparently by rupturing this pipeline, Black Noir created the worst environmental hazard in history, because again, 1.4 billion fish have died because of what he's done, and the Deep considers this a fish genocide. So he is extremely pissed off. He did all this just to get revenge on the Deep, and at this moment the Deep absolutely just snaps. He ends up grabbing like some type of wire. He's strangling Black Noir again. I know I bring up Dexter a lot on this channel, but it's my favorite show of all time. It reminded me of season 1, episode 1 of Dexter. He would use this move a lot on people when he's behind them, wrap that wire around their neck, or the Hitman video game series if you're into gaming. Now, he is strangling Black Noir to death, and he ends up grabbing one of Black Noir's knives out and putting it through his skull. And that is the end of Black Noir. We watch him bleed out on the podcast table, and after this takes place, the Deep is extremely regretful because he just killed what was supposed to be his best friend and the only person that he could really relate to in the world. But at the same time, their beef has just gone too far, so it was about time that we see one of these characters take their way out of the series. Now, we pick back up with Chet at the VMC. The boys are pretty much done with their use of him, so he's just back to work. Okay, his manager is talking to him, and suddenly we have the most absurd transition in this entire episode where his manager's head just explodes and his brains are just all over the ground, and none other than the Homelander has shown up to confront Chet because he knows that he's been working with the boys. So Chet is terrified in this scene, and he ends up just admitting to Homelander, like, listen, I care nothing about the boys. I'll give you any information you want on them, anything you want to know at all. And Homelander is genuinely terrifying in this scene. Like, this character is horrifying by this point in the series, and I love every second of his performance. This is my favorite character in the show. It's been that way since episode 1, and it still hasn't changed 5 seasons later. Now, moving over into what's going on with the boys. All right, they're waiting for the arrival of Bombsight. Sister Sage is there with the boys, and none other than Bombsight finally shows up. We've seen a little bit of him in the teaser. I broke that down on the channel. I have been doing every single teaser trailer that they've released for the next episode, so pay attention to those. Look out for those videos, okay, if you want more information on the boys series before the next episode's release. But while Bombsight is arriving for Goldie, at the same time, Chet takes Homelander to the former hideout of the boys. They're too smart, they moved on by now, but at this hideout they end up finding a Taco Bell receipt, and that is just another way of Sister Sage to taunt Homelander. He is frustrated by this, and then he just goes off on his own tirade, on his own rant to what he believes is an angel at this point. He's talking to like his former mother figure, who of course has passed away. We've seen her break out of like his psychotic mind a couple episodes ago, and so he's ranting, he's talking to her. He's like, if you didn't want me to get the V1, then why did you tell me that I was going to eventually become immortal? And at this point, Chet goes, okay, if you're saying all this around me of all people, I have a feeling you're just going to kill me, and I probably am not going to walk out of here alive. Homelander's like, yeah, pretty much. And then Chet ends up giving Homelander this pep talk saying, listen, kid, no superhero at their time, when they were at their peak, knew that their end was coming, okay? One day you're at your peak, the next day your time is over, and it's time for the next generation to take over. That's just the natural course of life. He ends up patting Homelander on the back, and then Homelander's like, wait a second, you aren't scared of me? You aren't terrified of me? And Chet's like, no, if anything, I feel bad for you. And because of this, if you know anything about the Homelander character, whenever someone is not afraid of him, and whenever someone is like a father figure to him in some sort of way, he ends up just letting them live. And so we see that situation happen here. He tells Chet, listen, just get the hell out of here. Do not say any words to me, just leave. And unlike Firecracker, Chet actually listens, and he runs the hell out of there with his life. So that was an interesting dynamic between Chet and Homelander. Now moving on, Homelander ends up discovering through a commercial that they've seen that there is such a thing as VOT alert, which is pretty much like life alert in real life for old people, but they have VOT alert. Of course, they have to parody every single thing with the word VOT in front of it. So he ends up tracking a VOT number, calling a cell phone, tracking the VOT number for a VOT necklace, that necklace being Goldie's necklace, so he could find out exactly where the boys are. Now moving back over into what's been going on now that Bombsight has arrived, we get this scene where he's lying to the boys about bringing the V1, and Sister Sage is like, you're lying, it's in your left pocket, I can see the vial right there. And after that, Bombsight is done talking. He attacks Butcher, flies at him, he's attacking Kamiko, he's attacking everyone in sight who he thinks is holding Goldie captive. And I thought this was a great display of his ability, because they've been hyping this guy up for multiple episodes now like he's some huge force to be reckoned with, and we find out that he actually is, okay? This guy is a real problem. He has the original V1 serum, he is immortal, he hasn't aged a day since he's taken this serum, and he's putting up a very tough fight here. But while he's attacking Kamiko, none other than Golden Geisha herself ends up putting up her own like invisible woman shield over Kamiko, saving her, pretty much telling Bombsight to stop and explaining the situation to him that, listen, I'm down to be with you for the remainder of my life, but I do not want to be immortal, and I don't want to live forever, and pretty much trying to get him to give up that V1 serum. Now, while this is taking place, Soldier Boy arrives. All right, he found their location before Homelander did, and him and Bombsight apparently have this 80-year-old beef, so they immediately get right at it. And the boys are about to step in, but Sister Sage says, whoa, hold on. I planned all of this. Let them fight it out. Let's not get in the way of this, okay? Everything is going according to plan, which of course Sister Sage is the smartest person in the universe, and that is being proven yet again in this here scene. So while they're fighting, Soldier Boy ends up grabbing onto Bombsight. Bombsight flies off. They end up landing in some random field. Soldier Boy's like, damn it, I hate flying. And then he starts actually winning the fight between Bombsight and himself. Ends up getting a choke position over Bombsight, and right when he's about to break his neck, he pretty much just stops and says like, listen, I don't even want to kill you really, just give me the V1. And after they have this heart-to-heart with each other about how Bombsight loves Goldie and how Soldier Boy of course loved Stormfront and their different trials and tribulations throughout their own personal relationships, he ends up telling Bombsight that, listen, I'll take away your powers, because of course we know that Soldier Boy's power is to be able to take other people's power away. And once the V1 serum is out of your blood, you will be able to age out and live the remainder of your years with the love of your life, Goldie. And Bombsight absolutely agrees to this because he is so head over heels in love that he would give up immortality for it, which I found interesting. Not sure if I would make the same choice there, quite honestly. And I think Bombsight ends up regretting this choice very soon. And I say that because after he takes Bombsight's power away and then he gives the V1 over to Soldier Boy, none other than the Homelander shows up in this field, and him and Soldier Boy are about to have a confrontation. Now, when he shows up, Bombsight takes the hell off, and this is what I'm talking about as to why he more than likely immediately regrets giving up that immortality, because as soon as he does, the most demonic human in the entire universe, Homelander, shows up at his location, and he is running away for his life. Now, while Soldier Boy and Homelander are hashing it out, it seems at first like everything is going according to Sister Sage's plan, but she didn't calculate that Bombsight and Soldier Boy would end up having this heart-to-heart about their own lovers' quarrel. And because that took place, Soldier Boy has a change of heart and he hands that V1 serum over to his son Homelander so that he could be immortal just like him and so that he can live forever. And in doing so, Sister Sage is like, no way this just happened. I calculated everything down. No way this just took place. But no, apparently the smartest person in the universe made a miscalculation. You see that conversation with Bombsight changed all of that. And after injecting this serum, Homelander goes Super Saiyan. We see him shooting the laser eyes everywhere. We see him powering up. And I just couldn't believe it at this point in time that they actually did this. I'm so excited to see what's going to happen next in these 2 episodes. And that is where the episode cuts to black right there. Okay, that was the end of this episode right there. Homelander got the V1 serum. He is now immortal. He is now unstoppable. And man, this was a brilliant episode, another banger. This has been the best season of The Boys up to this point, and every season has been amazing, but man, they're really knocking it out of the park here. I can't wait to see my favorite character, the most psychopathic bastard in the universe, really go all out and just wreak havoc on the world of The Boys. So with that being said, let's go ahead and drop my official rating for this episode. If I had to rate season 5 episode 6 of The Boys, I would give this episode a 10 out of 10. It gets the 10 out of 10. This was an absolute banger. Can't wait to see what happens next in the next 2 episodes. So happy that Homelander is seemingly about to win. I know I'm not supposed to be, right? I'm supposed to be on the good guy's side. All right, we've been with The Boys since episode 1. We've been against Homelander since episode 1. But like I said, this is my personal favorite character in the entire series. So to see him go all out and really get to see how psychopathic and how destructive this character can truly be, this is going to be an amazing finale. Can't wait to see what they do with the next 2 episodes. I'm there. All right, stay tuned for the breakdowns and the reviews because we will be dropping them over the next 2 weeks once those release on Prime Video, of course. So those are my thoughts on this episode, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode down in the comment section down below. If you don't know what we do here on Jimmy God on YouTube, we do film, TV, and pop culture-based content. So if you're interested in this type of content in the right place, hit subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Peace.